My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29 years old, an artificial intelligence developer living in Seattle. I will never forget the moment I stepped into that downtown courtroom. The sharp echo of my wooden crutch striking against the marble floor carried through the silence, each sound a reminder of both my weakness and my strength. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it against my ribs, but I refused to slow my steps. The front of the room sat my family, my parents and my older sister. Their faces were a mask of smug certainty, as if the world already belonged to them, as if everything I had worked for had already been stripped away. They were confident I was broken, beaten, erased from the future I had built. But when their eyes finally met mine, the shift was undeniable. I saw it, the panic, the disbelief, the sudden crack in their arrogance. I was still here. I was still standing. Pain in my leg flared with every move, but it was nothing compared to the fire in my chest. Survival had reshaped me, and in that moment they realized I was not someone who could be erased. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories. They're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. My father shot up from his chair, his face drained of all color. "Dear God, it's her," he shouted, his voice slicing through the courtroom like a blade. The entire room froze. For a moment, even the judge seemed suspended in silence. They had believed I would never rise from that hospital bed, that I would remain trapped in a coma, discarded like something useless and forgotten. But I wasn't gone. They had already set their eyes on my $12 million contract, the greatest achievement of my life. They thought it was theirs for the taking. They thought I was out of the way. They were wrong. And I had made sure they paid the price. It all began months earlier. I remember leaving the glass tower in downtown Seattle, the contract still trembling in my hands. $12 million, $12 million, for the algorithm I had built, a revolutionary AI medical system capable of detecting early-stage cancer with an accuracy no one had ever seen before. That piece of paper was not just money, it was validation of years of sacrifice. I had poured myself into that code, night after night, fueled by little more than coffee, determination, and the stubborn belief that I could create something that mattered. For years, I had endured dismissive smirks from colleagues who claimed a young woman like me couldn't possibly lead a breakthrough in such a male-dominated field. I had heard it all, naive, dreamer, unqualified. But I endured. And now, at 29, I was standing at the pinnacle of my career, holding proof that I had not only survived but triumphed. Driving back to my family's suburban home in Bellevue, I couldn't help but picture the moment I'd share the news. My heart swelled with anticipation. I imagined the pride in my mother's eyes, the way my father would finally see me as more than the fragile daughter who always had to prove herself. I thought my sister Lauren, at 34, would hug me tightly, maybe even shed a tear of joy. But reality is rarely that kind. When I walked into the kitchen, the scene was nothing like I'd pictured. Lauren was already there, sitting at the counter with her back perfectly straight, her posture radiating control. Her eyes met mine, cold, sharp, unreadable. She was dressed immaculately, as always, her tailored blazer and sleek hair reminding me that she thrived on appearances, on being the one in the spotlight. Lauren Mitchell, marketing director at the very tech company I had founded, had always known how to command a room. I stepped closer, my excitement impossible to contain, and held the contract up as though it were a trophy. "I did it, Lauren." I beamed, my chest so full of pride it nearly hurt. $12 million. Can you believe it? I waited for her to share in my joy. To celebrate with me, her younger sister, who had finally achieved something extraordinary. But she didn't smile. She didn't move. Her expression remained carved in stone, her lips pressed into a line as her eyes flicked down at the paper in my hands. There was no congratulations, no warmth, only silence. And in that silence, I felt the first chill of betrayal. Her lips curved into a strained, almost mocking smile. "Your algorithm?" she hissed, her tone dripping with disbelief. "You mean the one I supervised? The one I presented at meetings?" Her voice was sharp as glass, slicing through my excitement. I froze, staring at her. I had always known Lauren was competitive. How could I not? Our whole lives she had been the golden child, the one our parents coddled while I had to fight just to be noticed. But this was different. The envy in her eyes was naked now, unmasked, pulsing beneath every word. "Lauren," I began carefully, forcing my voice to stay calm even as my hands trembled. "The algorithm is mine. From the first line of code to the endless nights testing and refining, it's all my work. You know that. You've seen me." But she cut me off, her voice rising sharper, angrier. "You think you're smarter than me, don't you? You think you're better?" I tried again, desperate to make her understand. "It's not about being better. This is my work. My life. I wanted to share this with you." She didn't hear me. Or maybe she didn't care. Our voices escalated, bouncing off the kitchen walls until it felt like the whole house was vibrating. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, feel the old ache of being the overlooked sister twisting into something darker. Before I knew it, I was at the top of the stairs. The railing felt cold under my palm. Lauren's face loomed closer, her eyes glittering with something I couldn't name. "You think you're better than me?" She spat again, and this time the words were a hiss. Then, without warning, she shoved my shoulder hard. Everything slowed. I felt my balance tilt, the world tilting with it. My hand clawed at the air, searching for something to hold. And then nothing, no railing, no ground. Just the hollow shock of falling. Pain detonated in my skull as my body struck the wooden steps, each impact a white-hot burst of agony. My leg twisted under me, I heard something crack. The world blurred, sound folding into silence. And then darkness closed in like a tide. When I opened my eyes again, the world was no longer my family's house. Sterile light poured down from a ceiling. Machines beeped in steady rhythm around me, their green lines climbing and falling like tiny heartbeats. My head throbbed with a heavy alien pain. My leg burned as though it were on fire. A nurse appeared at my side, her face gentle, her hands light as she adjusted the blanket. "You're awake," she said softly, relief flickering across her features. I swallowed, my throat dry as paper. "How long?" I rasped, the question barely a whisper. Her eyes filled with sympathy. 3 weeks, she said quietly. "You've been in a coma for 3 weeks. I closed my eyes. 3 weeks stolen from me. 3 weeks for them to move their pieces. And I would find out soon enough what they had done. When I finally found the strength to ask about my family, the nurse hesitated. Her eyes flickered with unease before she spoke. "No one has come," she said carefully. "Your parents called once, but they never showed up." Her words pierced me deeper than any injury. I had expected Lauren to vanish after what she'd done. Cowards always hide. But my parents? Robert and Margaret Carter, who had once cradled me as their daughter, now abandoning me as if I were nothing more than a burden? I remembered their voices from years past, dismissing me as the troublesome one, the difficult child, the one who questioned too much, who refused to play the obedient role Lauren had perfected. My sister was the golden standard, I was the shadow. Till some part of me had believed that blood meant something, that in my darkest hour they would come. But they didn't. That rejection burned hotter than the pain in my shattered leg. days blurred together in sterile light. The room became a prison, its white walls too clean, too cold. The rhythmic beeping of machines was my only companion. Every time the door creaked, hope surged in my chest that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally come for me. But the door always shut again, empty. Until one morning, the silence broke. Lauren stood at the foot of my bed, immaculate as ever, her lips curved into a cruel smile. Her presence sent a chill through me, colder than the hospital air. "Still clinging to life, Emily?" she asked, her voice sharp and merciless. "You're in everyone's way." Her words cut deeper than the needle in my arm. I struggled to push myself upright, pain tearing through my body. My voice cracked as I forced out the question, "Why are you here?" She leaned closer, her perfume sharp, her eyes gleaming with a malice she no longer cared to hide. Her whisper brushed against my ear like poison. "Just to make sure you won't get in my way." Then she straightened, adjusted her blazer as if she had simply concluded a business meeting, and turned on her heel. Click of her heels echoed down the hallway until she was gone. I lay there trembling, not from weakness but from fury. My blood roared in my ears, hotter than fire. Her words weren't just cruel, they carried intent. She wasn't merely jealous. She had a plan. And if she had gone this far, pushing me down the stairs, visiting only to confirm my survival, then the stakes were greater than I'd imagined. That was the moment clarity struck. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was war. And Lauren had made the first move. But she underestimated me. I wasn't broken. I wasn't finished. Her visit didn't crush me, it lit the fuse. A few days later, the door opened quietly, and for the first time since my fall, a familiar warmth stepped into the sterile room. Sarah and Gwen slipped inside, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to stop her. She smelled faintly of rain and coffee, her trench coat damp at the edges. "Emily," she whispered, and then she was at my bedside, folding me into a careful hug, mindful of my 4 lines. "I've been trying to get in for days. The hospital kept blocking me, saying I wasn't on the approved visitor list." Her voice trembled with frustration. I almost had to sneak in through the back. The relief of her presence cracked something inside me. "You're here," I murmured, feeling a sting of tears. "I thought everyone had forgotten." Sarah pulled back, her dark eyes scanning my face with worry. "I wish I were just here to check on you," she said quietly. "But you need to know what's happening out there." A chill crawled up my spine. "What do you mean?" She glanced at the closed door, then leaned in closer. "Lauren," she began, her voice low, "she's telling people at the company that she's taking over your $12 million contract. She's acting like it was her idea all along." The words hit me like a physical blow. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. "She what?" My hands trembled on the blanket. "She's already presenting herself as the lead on the project," Sarah continued, anger rising in her tone. "People believe her because you're here, silent, unable to defend yourself. She's spinning this story to make it seem like you were just the coder, nothing more. And now she's stepping into the spotlight." I felt my pulse hammer against my temples. My algorithm, my years of work, being stolen in broad daylight. But Sarah wasn't finished. "She's not doing it alone," she added grimly. "I've been digging." Lauren paid Jason Reed, yes, that Jason from your team, to forge internal documents. They've rewritten project memos, shifted signatures, made it look like she was heading the initiative from day one. The board is already whispering about giving her control of the rollout. My stomach churned. Jason Reed had been one of the few colleagues I'd trusted. Now he was on Lauren's payroll, rewriting my history. That night, after Sarah left, her words burned inside me. I pulled my laptop closer, wincing as my leg throbbed. The hospital Wi-Fi was weak, but enough. I logged into my bank account to pay an outstanding hospital bill, trying to at least hold on to something normal. And then the screen went red. Count frozen. The words blinked at me like a warning light. My chest tightened. I dialed the bank immediately, my fingers shaking, and after several transfers, a flat, practiced voice answered. Ms. Carter, according to a court order, your accounts have been temporarily frozen. The documentation cites a determination of financial incapacity. You are not currently authorized to manage your assets. I stared at the ceiling, the sterile light spinning above me. Incapacity. I echoed, my voice breaking. I just woke up from a coma. I'm not incompetent. I'm sorry, ma'am, the voice said blandly. All we have is the order. It was filed while you were indisposed. I hung up slowly, my hand numb around the phone. My heart pounded with a new kind of rage. They hadn't just stolen my contract. They were dismantling my life, brick by brick, while I lay unconscious. But as fury burned in my chest, it also lit something else, a clear, cold resolve. They thought I was powerless. They were wrong. Piece by piece, the picture came into focus. Lauren wasn't just jealous. She was the architect of everything. From the shove that sent me tumbling down the stairs to the theft of my contract, she had orchestrated it all. On a gray afternoon, as rain streaked the hospital windows, a man in a charcoal suit stepped into my room. He was tall, with dark hair neatly parted and eyes sharp enough to cut through the dim light. "Emily Carter?" he asked, his voice low but firm. "Yes," I said, my hand tightening on the blanket. He closed the door behind him and set a thick legal folder on the rolling table by my bed. "I'm Michael Hayes," he said. "Attorney. 35. I was hired by a colleague of yours at the company, someone who noticed you'd been gone too long." My heart skipped. Someone had noticed. Someone cared enough to send help. Michael opened the folder and slid a document toward me. Paper trembled in my hands as I read. My own signature stared back at me, scrawled beneath a declaration of legal incapacity. "They filed a petition to have you declared unfit to manage your assets," Michael explained. "This document, filed while you were comatose, transfers the management of your contract to another party." I looked up at him, my throat dry. "Another party? You mean?" "Lauren Mitchell," he said flatly. "She's listed as interim custodian of your intellectual property. And there's more." His tone darkened as he pulled out another set of papers. "Your medical records have been tampered with. They claim you suffered severe neurological damage, that your coma would likely be permanent. Someone wanted the court to believe you'd never recover." I stared at the lines of text, each one a nail hammered into the coffin they had tried to build around me. It wasn't just about money. It was about erasing me. A knock on the door made me flinch. My attending physician, Dr. Anna Patel, stepped inside, her expression tight. She was 42, with kind but steady eyes and a voice that always carried quiet authority. "I've reviewed what Mr. Hayes found," she said, taking a seat by my bed. "And he's right. Your medical chart contains entries I never wrote. They're designed to portray you as severely brain-damaged, non-responsive." She handed me a printed page from my file. Highlighted phrases leapt out at me: severe neurological impairment, extended vegetative state. I felt my stomach twist. "You're saying someone did this on purpose?" "Yes," Anna said firmly. "Someone wanted you kept out of the loop. They wanted to ensure you couldn't contest whatever was happening on the outside." Michael leaned forward, his eyes on mine. "Emily, if we're going to fight this, we need evidence, clear evidence of who's behind it." But I didn't need time to guess. I already knew. Lauren. Lauren, who had always been the favored one, who had turned our parents' indulgence into a weapon. And Robert and Margaret Carter, my parents, had stood by, complicit in silence, perhaps even in action. My hands clenched into fists. The betrayal was a living thing inside me now, breathing and hot. They hadn't just tried to steal my work. They had tried to erase me from my own life. But I was awake. I was alive. And now I had a lawyer and a doctor who believed me. For the first time since I opened my eyes in this hospital, I felt something other than rage or pain. I felt power returning, and I intended to use it. I had made up my mind. It was time to fight back. My body was still weak, my steps unsteady, but my will had hardened like steel. If I remained in that hospital bed, they would succeed in erasing me, not just from the company, but from the very life I had built. I signed the early discharge papers, wrapped myself in a heavy coat, and walked out into the gray streets of Seattle like a soldier limping home from war. I arranged to meet Lauren at a cafe downtown. That afternoon, the sky was low with thick clouds, the air sharp with Puget Sound's chill. My heart pounded, not from fear but from rage held back for too long. In my purse, hidden under my notebook, was a small voice recorder. When I pushed the glass door open, the chime rang softly. Lauren was already there, seated by the window, the city's drizzle glistening behind her. Her golden hair framed her face perfectly, her eyes glittering with smug superiority. The moment she saw me, her lips curled into that familiar, cruel smile. "Still alive, are you?" she sneered. Her words sliced into me like a blade. But I held my voice steady, forcing my expression into calm. I slid into the seat across from her, carefully placing my bag so the recorder could catch every word. "I want to talk about the contract," I said evenly. Lauren leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, eyes sparkling with triumph. "It's mine now," she replied coldly. "You can't do anything from a hospital bed." That single sentence was all I needed. My pulse quickened as I fought to keep my composure, but inside I felt the recorder in my bag capturing her arrogance, her open confession. The very next day, I contacted a private investigator, Rachel Torres, 38 years old, a former Seattle police officer turned independent investigator. Small in stature, sharp in demeanor, with eyes that missed nothing. When I told her my story, she didn't even flinch. She nodded once and said, "Leave it with me." Within days, Rachel came back with proof, a $15,000 transfer from Lauren to Jason Reed, an employee 2 levels below me, paid for falsifying company documents. At the same time, Sarah, the only colleague who had never abandoned me, sent me a chain of internal emails. In them, Lauren bragged to our boss about how she would replace me and get the contract on the right track. Every word was self-incrimination. Combined with the bank records and the recording, we had built an unbreakable case. The day of the trial arrived. The Superior Court of Seattle loomed over me as I walked in, my legs trembling not from weakness but from adrenaline. Inside, the air was sterile and heavy, the benches packed with silent observers. I could smell the old varnish of the wooden pews and the faint metallic tang of nerves in the room. Michael Hayes, my attorney, stood beside me, tall and composed, a reassuring presence. He pressed the thick case file against his chest and gave me a single nod, his eyes saying everything his lips didn't: "We're ready." When the judge entered, the gavel's echo silenced the room. Proceedings began. Michael laid it all out methodically. First, the audio recording of Lauren's arrogant confession. Her voice filled the courtroom speakers, clear and cutting. "It's mine now. You can't do anything from a hospital bed." Heads turned toward her. Even she flinched at hearing herself exposed. Then came the emails projected on the courtroom screen, her words in black and white boasting of my downfall. Next, the bank records, the payment to Jason Reed. Finally, the testimony of Dr. Anna Patel, who explained how my medical files had been tampered with to portray me as permanently incapacitated. It was a fortress of evidence. Lauren rose, her voice dripping with feigned righteousness. "I was only protecting the company," she insisted, gesturing dramatically. "She isn't stable enough to handle such responsibility." But her performance cracked when Jason Reed was called to the stand. Sweat gathered on his forehead as he fumbled with his tie. I only did what she asked," he stammered. Courtroom buzzed with whispers. His words sealed her fate. I turned then, slowly, toward my parents sitting in the gallery. Their faces were pale, drained of all color. My mother avoided my eyes, my father stared at the floor. They had aligned themselves with Lauren from the very beginning, believing in her over me, their own daughter. Now, in the stark fluorescent light of justice, their complicity was undeniable. When my name was called, I rose and walked to the witness stand. My legs felt heavy, but my voice came out steady. I told the court about the years I had spent building my algorithm from scratch, about the long nights and the sacrifices. I spoke of the staircase, the shove I felt, the crack of my skull, the blur of the hospital ceiling. And then I told them about betrayal, not just from Lauren, but from my own blood. They thought I would stay silent, I said, letting my gaze sweep across the courtroom. They thought fear would keep me quiet. But I am here because truth matters. Justice matters. And I refuse to be erased. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the scratching of pens. When the verdict came, it was decisive. Lauren was sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud and conspiracy. Jason Reed, 3 years for his role in falsifying records. My parents faced a civil suit and were ordered to pay $100,000 in damages for aiding the scheme. As the gavel struck, I felt a weight lift from my chest, years of manipulation, cruelty, and silence finally breaking apart like chains falling to the ground. I exhaled, my shoulders trembling, but my heart steady for the first time in months. I cut ties with my family that very day. They were no longer part of my life, no longer part of my story. Lauren, my parents, they belonged to the past, and I would not carry them into my future. I moved into a new apartment in Capitol Hill, a modern building with tall glass windows overlooking Puget Sound. Every morning, the lights spilled over the water, glittering with possibility. For the first time, I woke without dread gnawing at my chest. With the settlement from the contract, I invested $1 million into a nonprofit organization in Seattle dedicated to helping victims of family abuse. We offered legal aid, therapy, and safe housing. I wanted others like me, silenced, cornered, betrayed by those closest to them, to find a path back to dignity and power. The nonprofit's launch event, the room was filled with survivors, advocates, and community leaders. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces filled with hope, some tearful, some hardened by battles of their own. I took a breath, steadying myself. No one, I said firmly, should ever be abandoned in their fight. No one should ever be erased because others decided they were inconvenient. We all deserve to stand, to be heard, and to be free. Applause filled the hall, rising like a wave. For the first time in years, I smiled not with defiance, but with peace. The battle was over. The scars remained, but they were no longer wounds. They were proof that I had survived, that I had rebuilt, and that my voice could never again be stolen. That is how I turned pain into purpose. Looking back, I finally understand. My family does not define me. Lauren and my parents tried to erase me, but all they did was force me to uncover the strength I had carried all along. From the hospital bed to the courtroom, I learned to stand on my own, to fight when no one else would fight for me. My algorithm is no longer just a contract or a paycheck. It is living proof that I can survive betrayal, endure suffering, and still rise stronger than before. When I look at the Seattle skyline, I no longer see the shadow of what was taken. I see the horizon of everything I will build, untouched by those who tried to destroy me. And from this journey, I carry 5 lessons that I want to share with you. Lesson 1: family is not always blood. Sometimes the people who share your last name can be the ones who hurt you the most. What matters are those who choose to stand by you, not those who abandon you. Lesson 2: betrayal is not the end. Being pushed down, literally in my case, can feel like the world is collapsing. But sometimes it's the fall that teaches you how to rise with new clarity. Lesson 3. Protect your work, protect your voice. Whether it's an idea, a dream, or a piece of your heart, guard it fiercely. Others may try to steal it, but the truth has a way of resurfacing when you stand firm. Lesson 4. Pain can be power. The very wounds that almost broke you can become the fuel to build something greater, for yourself and for others who need hope. Lesson 5. You are enough. Even when the people closest to you try to convince you otherwise, your worth is not determined by their approval. It's determined by how you choose to live, love, and lead. So, if my story moved you, if it reminded you that no storm lasts forever, I ask you to support this channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, not just for me, but so these stories of resilience reach someone who might need them right now. Together, we can turn pain into purpose.